The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
And a good Friday late morning, early afternoon, Webster Groves. This is Arnold Stricker of In Tune with
Ellie Wharton.
You're listening to In Tune, a 2-hour weekly broadcast which focuses and reflects on issues that impact and connects our community and the greater St. Louis area. Our topics include the arts, crime, education, employment, faith, finance, food, history, housing, humor,
lots of humor,
and justice. We have in studio Chris Mullen, who is the host of Studio 111, and Chris has graciously decided to stay in the studio because we actually tied her into her chair. She couldn't leave.
You know, that duct tape, I'm telling you, duct tape cures a world of ills.
Duct tape and baling wire.
And that's right.
Ooh, the makings of a wall.
Of a wall, that's right.
There was a guy that was pulling a trailer full of hay, and he didn't have a ball on the back of his pickup truck, so he took some baling wire and wrapped it into the bumper area, and it worked actually very well.
For how long?
Oh, he was traveling for many, many miles.
Really?
Yes.
At what speed?
Oh, probably 30 miles an hour.
And with baling wire.
With baling wire.
I'm going to have to get some of that.
Yeah, it's good. And get
Go
some
with
good
the duct tape. That's right.
The duct
Duct
tape
tape.
is not like it used to be, though. You know, I remember back in my day when the duct tape, you couldn't get it off.
Right.
That was the whole purpose of duct tape.
That's correct. Now it's just like
any other
it's
tape
worthless.
is just gray.
It's worthless.
Yeah. It's really funny, though, you know, when you start to think about all of the things that you get during this time of the year that help to stick things together. Like, you know, you get the tape so that you can tape up your children's toys, you know, the wrapping, and, you know, and you spend all this time on wrapping and making sure that it looks so pretty. And then what do the kids do? They come and they grab it, not where the tape is, right in the middle.
Absolutely. So you can't reuse that paper.
That's right. Well, in my household, trust me, we've got paper that's been there since the 30s.
And don't forget, when in doubt,
toss it out.
Throw it out.
That's it.
That's right. Recycling.
I
We have all these bells and whistles, Chris.
I see.
You know, but I did tell someone about what we learned about, again, the napkin. That was the big one because, you know, I always say that when I get extra napkins, they just recycle right into my purse.
Sure.
You know, see,
Yeah.
see, Chris does that too.
Absolutely.
You know, Chris Mullen, not Chris Verdesi. Chris Verdesi tosses his napkins out, I'm sure. He doesn't have a purse.
I'm an old pro with recycling. You know, we've been doing this in New York since the 70s.
How about that? His purse must be full of napkins.
My trash can is.
Yeah, exactly. But now when I go to Panera Bread, you know, shameless plug for Panera on Allen Avenue in Webster Groves, but
You know to throw it away.
I throw it away now. And I actually caught somebody else, you know, doing that. And they got a little upset with me because, you know, after I tackled them, dragged them back and made them put their hand into the trash can and put it into the right hole.
Ooh. They had to go to the restroom and wash their hands.
Well, you know, I'm serious about recycling, folks. Do it right or...
Don't do it at all.
That's right. That's it. That's it.
Yes, I'm so thankful for single stream recycling.
Yes.
Believe me.
And we're going to be continuing to help educate folks out there about how to do that correctly and do it better so we don't lose single stream.
Exactly. And especially during the holidays right now. I mean,
Yep.
do we recycle wrapping paper? Do we recycle the tissue paper inside? Or how about even those nice colored bags that we get now so that we don't have to wrap?
Yep.
You know, I love
There is
whoever
that.
came up with those little gift bags, man, I tell
It's
you.
called cheater wrap.
Cheater wrap.
Just throw it in the bag.
And throw some colored tissue paper on top
Right.
of it. Here.
Make it look nice.
Make it look nice.
So, Chris, yeah, it's been interesting listening to you on the air and in your background. And, you know, I don't know that many people know your background. Many people maybe do. I don't. So
I do.
That's why I'd love to tell us a little bit about Chris Mullen.
Webster Groves native. Spent about 20 years as a city resident. Love both of them for different reasons. I'm back in Webster, and writing and producing and scheming and plotting.
Does that have anything to do with writing and producing?
Yes, it does.
It always should.
So those
Arts and culture.
those are arts and culture. So what got you interested in music and the arts and culture?
Oh, wow. Music was always around me. I started with piano with one teacher and then picked up flute and clarinet in
Wow.
grade school with Walter Latham.
That
who
man was
amazing.
Amazing.
And he played with George Hudson Big Band,
Right.
among other things. So there were the textbook music books that you get, and then having a serious jazz player as a teacher. So things sort of seeped in.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you know, Mr. Latham lived to be 100 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you being a band instructor, I mean, you can appreciate, this guy was such a tremendous, he saw the value in students and was willing to even invest his own personal money. One particular person who is extremely good,
Right.
that he actually paid for a tutor who was Juilliard trained
Wow.
to teach this young man who is today a professional musician. And there are many others who came through our community through
Yeah.
Douglas Elementary. Because of Mr. Latham, we got involved in music, and he made sure that everybody had an instrument and that we had the training that we needed.
And that's the nice thing I like about instruments, or knowing how to play, or if you sing,
Yeah.
is that it's something that you can continue to do throughout your life. You don't have to, okay, now that I'm out of high school, I stop playing. A lot of people do that.
Sure.
Or a lot of people do continue. Many times there's community bands around, or you just play for your own personal benefit. It's hard to haul a piano around now.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
now
the
you
keyboards
got
are
He was
great.
the
Yeah.
first teacher of Willie Aikens,
Wow.
who we lost not too long ago.
Wow.
And Willie always gave him his credit. And one thing Mr. Latham did is that when I was in 6th grade, he got me, Valerie Walker, to play with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra
Wow.
for a gig. And that was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful.
It was, our teachers and Chris and I grew up together.
Right.
We live on the same street,
Right.
just at different ends of the street. And today we still live in different ends of the same street.
Right, in the same houses.
In the same houses, exactly. And so we know all of these people because we grew up with all
Right.
of these people, so that's our common experience, But when you really stop to think about how our teachers, they took such an extraordinary interest in our areas of strength, and they were willing to do what it would take at the time to give us, the road to success. And that was just so incredible because a lot of times they were coming out of their pockets,
Yep.
and we didn't realize it, at the time, but they were doing that in order to help us give that leg up for
Well,
what we
and-
were getting ready to, experience once we went across the street.
Yeah, that experience, it gives you, it develops a lot of different kinds of things within your character.
Exactly.
Right.
And-
Also, we have to attribute strong parental involvement.
That
in
is
the
true.
home, in the school, in the
Yes.
community, walking down the street. If you veered off in an area that could get you into some trouble, there was somebody who was saying, "Oh no, oh no," and then would have the conversation with your parents. So
Before you even got home.
Yep.
That
Yep.
was the thing, it's like, how do you know my phone number?
Did you play clarinet or flute in the band at Webster Groves High School?
No, I was piano focused at
Piano
that
focused.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still playing?
I run scales.
Okay.
No, I don't play for anyone except my own enjoyment.
And that's good. And a lot of it, sometimes when I play, it's therapy for me.
Yes.
It helps me relax, or I can kind of go into a zone and do something different. So,
yeah.
so what did you do after you got out of high school? You did you
Went to
continue to play the
college.
music, or?
I continued to play most of my music on stereos.
Okay.
Radio, and started working with musicians. And that was a very interesting time in history, I think, sort of like another renaissance during that period, where music, dance, visual arts were breaking out of another box.
Right.
And moving in other directions.
Right.
And I actually started writing more during that period. And one of the people who made an impact is now the new poet laureate for the metro area, Shirley Bradley Price LaFleur. And she brought in free poetry along with the black artist group at the time that was doing modal jazz, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine Dunham was across the river bringing in African and Caribbean dance. So there was a whole lot of stuff going on.
Oh, wow,
And
yeah.
I got interested not in just being a practicing artist, but promoting the arts.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you've written? Are you into nonfiction, fiction, poetry, prose, short story?
I cross all of it. Some of it is I can write this for hire. And then some of it is I can write this and I better keep it in this drawer a long time. I've been working on one piece for over 20 years.
Wow.
And it's not right. And I'm going to make it right.
And that's typical of artists that we've had on the show and talked to them. It's like they know when it's done.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And because Chris always brings on different artists. I mean, she talks about Shirley LaFleur all the time. I think you've tried to get her here a couple of times, and
yeah, during that particular time, she was going through a little health issue. She's back and strong, and we are setting up plans for that interview.
Cool.
That's good. Yeah, because you've had the prior poet laureate. And
that was Michael Castro,
yes.
And you and I went over to his house, and you did that interview.
That's
it was
right.
A great interview.
It was a great interview, you
Absolutely.
know.
And I had Adelia
That's right.
Castro, his wife, who was a photographer, in studio. So, yeah.
So you went from music, you kind of moved into the literary area,
Yes.
and you also have done some videography and
Yes, I've produced, written, whatever, I like long-form documentary video essays. One of them was nominated for an Emmy, and that
Wow.
was cool.
what was that? Talk about
It's
that a little
called
bit.
Phoenix Rising. It was about the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that was a sort of interesting story because I heard that CBS under Tom Wyman's reign was looking to give several communities throughout the United States grants. So with Betty Lee, who was with Proud Magazine and the Jeff Vanderloo Neighborhood Corporation, we wrote a proposal, submitted it, and got funded. So there was a little bet going on. Mr. Wyman said, "Oh, you can't do that for that amount of money." Yeah, watch me, you know. So we made the documentary.
And how long was the documentary?
It's 58 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you documented the history of Jeff Vanderloo?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
There was a gentleman by the name of Mackler Shepherd who lived in that area. He had an upholstery shop, and he was an activist in his own way, and he hated to see his community declining.
Mm-hmm.
So he started talking with the Mennonite church, who had a church in the neighborhood.
Wow.
And there was a gentleman, Reverend Schwarzentruber, and Cecil Miller, who were both Mennonites, who got together with him. And if I recall correctly, because I haven't seen the documentary in a while, they started talking with neighbors and talking with organizations and started rebuilding physically and rebuilding culturally and emotionally that community, and it was sailing forward beautifully. At one point, they even owned the building that is now the Scott Joplin Museum.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And when they determined that it would be best as a formal museum, they worked with the state to take that over. And the first person working on that is a woman by the name of Annette Bridges, a classmate from Webster University. But yeah, that community was incredible. We had a communications resource center where we had high school juniors and seniors for 2 classes a day, each class being 3 hours, in film photography, radio production, television production, and writing.
You know,
and it was great.
the stuff that happens today, it's like, it's not new.
No.
These things have been going on for a long time. What you just talked about, having high school kids in for a couple hours a day, and, you know, we talk about programs that are out there that do these kinds of things. And you made a comment earlier about rebuilding a neighborhood physically, but also emotionally and culturally.
Oh,
That's
look,
an interesting statement.
We had overnight pajama parties for community. We would show movies and have popcorn, and you just come into the studios, grab a blanket or a sleeping bag, and watch a movie, you know. One of the things that we thought was important is if we're working with your kids, you should be aware of what your kids are doing.
Right.
You know, the door is open.
Right.
You know, we had a lot of community support in that we would give a kid a $40,000 camera and say, go shoot this event. And I remember one kid saying, well, what if somebody tries to take this? Let it go.
Right.
Come back and tell me.
Right.
But be able to come back and tell me.
Right.
Exactly.
And don't lose your life over it,
Right.
that piece of
You know.
equipment.
And it was, the kids are great. You know, they were great. They are great. Some of them have gone on to work within the industries. One of them is editorial page editor at the Atlanta Constitution.
Oh, wow.
You know, one has been a videographer at KMOV for a number of years. They're all across the country. They're doing what they're doing, you know, and they're wonderful.
So you get done with that program, and how does something like that get nominated for an Emmy?
It's my understanding that it was submitted.
Okay.
Which I did not do. All I got was the notification that, we are going to have the program on this night, and this is going to happen. We did not win the Emmy for that, and that's okay, because I'm still in shock that it was nominated. You know?
Well, maybe that gentleman who didn't think it could be done for that budget was like, oh, wow, look at this. They did it for that budget. Let's nominate
actually,
it.
he was quite impressed with it, and it was screened on our PBS station here.
Okay.
That was its premiere, and that was like real cool.
So you like executive producer and director and writer and
Yep.
All
of
the
those.
above, right?
All of the above. And had I known, I would have done a W.C. Fields and had multiple names, because otherwise it could seem like an ego trip.
So after that, what was going through your mind as to what you wanted to do?
I wanted to stay in a situation where I could pursue what interested me and opportunities. So I went into a partnership in industrial and commercial film. And that was pretty interesting.
Well,
but also with events attached.
What's the difference between industrial and commercial film?
Well, it wasn't like a broadcast
Okay.
situation, but it may be like maybe someone's running for office and needs some commercials cut, you
okay.
know, and the first thing you learn is have that good talk and leave the first meeting with the check.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
you work on it. You
Okay.
know. So yeah. There are corporations that I have worked on their media packages.
And I'm sure there's probably a lot of training
A
films
lot
and things
of
like that too.
training
Yes.
stuff. Yes. There. I think I mentioned to you about a particular corporation that we shot that over 20 years ago, and they're still running.
They're still using it?
They're still
They
using
haven't updated
it.
their.
That's called
No,
getting
that's
their
how
money's worth.
good we were.
Yeah,
well, there you go. There you
Excuse
go.
me.
Well, you know, sometimes the content needs to be updated.
Yep.
Okay.
They don't have to do a thing.
Maybe update some clothes or some hairstyles.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
Don't
Well, there you
have
are.
to do a
You know,
thing.
because the thing of it is if you did it 20 years ago and people were in afros, guess what?
They're back
20
in
years, that's
afros.
right, exactly.
Right,
you know,
right. And sometimes you don't use people. Yes.
Well, we'll have to answer that question after the break that's coming
you're like,
up.
kind of, what do you use if you don't use people, huh?
Use inanimate objects.
There you go.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and so, and
The
thing-
talking microphone.
And the thing is that with technology, you know, there is so much that you can do that really is kind of like that miracle stuff. It makes it like, how did they do that? You know, and you don't tell anybody how how you do
there
it.
is nothing you really have to do for a Ginso knife.
That's right.
You know,
except
that will
not
work
cut your
forever.
own finger off. Okay.
Exactly. But the commercial itself works.
That's cool. That's very cool. This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton of In Tune. You're listening to KWRH-LP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri. Welcome back to In Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton. We've been talking to Chris Mullen, who is the host of Studio 111, and Chris has been telling us about her antics. No, off the air. No, she's been telling us about what
It's
she's been
believable.
doing in her life: a musician, a writer, a producer, director, a videographer, and we just talked about a program that she had completed, a 58-minute program, which was nominated for an Emmy on the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood. And Chris, so where'd you get this videography background? You Webster U grad, or what's the scoop on that one?
Webster did not have a formal communications department or TV department at the time I was going there, but they had cameras and they had some instructors who were interested, and I started with still photography, and a friend told me that, hey, you ought to try for an internship in this television station. And I went, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, that wasn't on my radar at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up with an internship with the CBS O&O here in St. Louis in television production. And I really got interested in producing, in that my mentor there is a guy named Ron.
I know Ron.
Ron Nichols.
Yeah, Ron
And
Nichols.
He was so cool in that he said, oh, you want to do that? Hey, you want to do that? You do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, back in the day, though, it was a little bit
Yeah,
easier,
it
you know,
was.
to kind of do what you wanted to do. Because it's interesting that Chris and I have both worked for that same station
Right.
here, you know. But back then, I think about how being in the business was so much easier, you know. Like,
to a point.
that's right. Like when I was
Because
also
the ceiling was much lower.
Yeah, that is very
yeah.
true. Like
Yeah.
when I worked in radio, we had an older guy that his big thing was getting us trade at the restaurants. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, we had probably $1 million worth of trade at the Hacienda at Rock Hill.
Yeah.
You know, and subsequently, when we took people to lunch, because you were expected, you know, you had these expense accounts and you were expected to spend this much money every month on, you know, man, I tell you, it's like the whole office. Hey, everybody, you want lunch? Come with us. Go into the Hacienda, you know. But those were the days when you could get a lot of things like that. You know, businesses were a lot more open to doing those type of things. They were a lot less centralized, lot less corporatized,
So you did a lot of kind of local interest projects.
Actually, he let me produce a lot of stuff. He had a weekly program, but he also served as director and producer of other things. And the first big one he let me do was Valerie Harper.
Oh,
Seriously?
wow. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was so good in that she was nice. She understood my position. I'm a college student who's not getting paid and doesn't know what she's doing.
Point
And
number
she
3, the number
helped
one point.
walked me through what I was supposed to do with her.
This was in New York then?
This was in St. Louis.
Really?
Yes. But at the same time, I started producing music.
Okay.
Tom Ray at Vintage Vinyl
Yeah.
and I were sitting around talking, and we decided we wanted to hear somebody. So we brought Keith Jarrett's band in town.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was the first music. So I had Valerie Harper in television and Keith Jarrett on stage. And
No small potatoes there.
No, and she doesn't work with any small potatoes. I'll tell you a little story about Chris. This is the Ricola Man story. Okay, so Chris is
I remember that commercial.
We are working on the radio station actually because Chris was part of the original steering committee, and we were having our biweekly meetings on the phone and everything. And then all of a sudden, I get this call on my phone, and I have it. Chris is in my phone, and I figure it's Chris, so I pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Chris, what's going on?" It was Chris's husband, and he tells me that Chris is now in the hospital with pneumonia. So, got to get in touch with Chris. Chris, what is going on? She says, I had my bags packed. I was getting ready to go to Switzerland. What are you going to do in Switzerland? I'm going to go cut a commercial with the Ricola Man.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right. That's exactly what I said to her. I said, you mean as in Ricola? Okay. And she goes, yes. And then she was heading out the door. And the next thing she knew, she was in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Thank goodness that happened when it happened, because she could have been on the plane anywhere, and something happened to her. And then she ended up spending 4 months in the hospital for pneumonia.
Gosh. Mm-hmm. Really
She told me she had every
Yeah.
pizza place in town on speed dial.
They like pizza in the hospital?
For
they
her.
let me have everything. I gotta tell you, they brought me the menus for surrounding restaurants, and they would allow them to be delivered after hours.
That's hilarious.
They
Can
were
you
very
imagine
good to me.
4 months of hospital food?
No.
I'm surprised she.
4 days of hospital
That's
food.
right, 4 minutes of hospital food.
Oh,
But yeah, and Chris came out and she was very, very weak and very, very thin. And it was just like, wow. But, I am so happy to say that, now she's nice and plump.
For me,
That's right, for her. And if people were to see her, they would kind of go, huh?
So name some other things that people might know that you've been involved with.
Well, one of the proudest moments of my life was to bring Sun Ra Orchestra to St. Louis.
Wow.
And I somehow got his phone number. Oh, I remember, because I chased his music all over the place and asked for it. And he gave it to me, and I called and asked him, why has this orchestra never played St. Louis? And he said, because no one has ever asked me.
Seriously?
Well,
Yep.
at least he didn't say
He was
St.
honest.
Louis where?
Yeah, he was,
Thank goodness.
St. Louis, Virginia?
Yeah, exactly. St. Louis, Michigan.
Yeah.
I think there is a
There
St.
is.
Louis,
Yeah.
Michigan, isn't
Could
there?
be.
He's
The negotiations were wonderful. He told me what airlines, and I said, I don't have airline money. What else can we do? So he brought the whole band down on the train,
wow.
All right.
and like 15 people in a band,
Wow.
all their instruments, and they performed, and it was beautiful. And it
That
all
had to have
worked
been in the day
out.
before the train was just as expensive as the plane. You
we
know,
got a bulk rate. We
bulk
argued
rate.
with everything from hotel rooms to everything. And he worked with me every step of the way.
That's great.
And then he would call the house, and my son would go, Mom, Uncle Sonny's on the phone. You know, I'm going, oh my goodness, no, that's Mr. Sunra.
So did you ever think you would be rubbing shoulders with people like this when you were beginning the process?
Actually, I didn't think about it. It was like, oh, here is this music, or here are these words. These are the people attached to it. I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to work with so many people, and some of them have become dear friends. But I think a lot has to do with when I started and the genres of music that I'm really interested in producing, because there aren't layers of security. And it wasn't a big deal. I'll give you an example. I went to hear Wes Montgomery, who was performing with Wynton Kelly and a whole bunch of people. And at most concerts, once the concert's over, everybody leaves the stage, you leave. Well, these guys took their bows and then started talking on stage, taking down instruments.
Yeah.
And I just walked up to the stage and went, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
You know? So you begin conversations.
You begin relationships.
Absolutely. And it just worked that way.
And you find out too that a lot of the jazz musicians are very approachable
Oh, yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You know, what we see is, you know, the rock guys and the rappers and everything that walk around, and you know they've got like 20 people around them, you know, and don't take my picture, and you know,
Yeah.
when
These
you go to
guys are looking for like, hey, is there someplace open where I can get a meal?
at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You
Where
know,
can I get a burger?
That's right.
Exactly,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
There was one group, John Luponte's group. They wanted to know, hey, what is the real estate market like here? You know,
Wow.
I mean,
John
the
LaPonte, oh my
conversations
goodness, loved him.
Are quite different than people would think. These are human beings who are interested in their surroundings.
You know, I think sometimes we put them on a pedestal because they are put on a pedestal many times by promotional kinds of
Right.
things, by the media, and to obviously promote them to get more money. But at the same time, there's a downside to that, is that you do have to kind of protect yourself as an artist. But there's this, I've told this story before when I was working backstage in a theater in college, where the Guarneri String Quartet came on. They were so relaxed. They were cracking jokes when they walked onto the stage. Their performance was unbelievable. Then there was this pianist who was so uptight. He needed, the water needed to be a certain temperature. He needed this kind of grape and whatever. And his performance was, my words, dull.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you really enjoy yourself, if you're relaxed, you really can perform. Or if you know you can perform very well and you're confident in who you are, you can just relax and have a good time.
One of the best conversations I had was with Al Green, who was in this area to talk about a government program. And there was the reception, and everybody's going, oh, Al Green, Al Green. And that's as far as they got,
Right.
And I went over and said, let's talk about B3s, So we went over to the side and had maybe an hour-long conversation about who was playing B3s.
They're coming back.
Hell,
They never went away.
No, they never went away, and that is an art.
It is to play that.
Yeah.
That's got the unique sound. The unique sound.
I mean, love and happiness. What would love and happiness be without the B3? Not taking away anything from
Right.
Al Green.
Right.
But that B3
Yeah.
gets you.
Well, it's the right combination of things,
Yes.
which actually makes hits.
That's right.
It's not necessarily the artist; it's the right combination of things.
Right.
So as you you're kind of moving forward. You're producing music. You're producing some video kinds of things. I know you said one thing that stood out, so you grabbed that question from me. What any regrets along the way?
Not too many opportunities lost, but yeah, you got to roll with that. The time that I started, I think I was doing some extraordinary stuff with some extraordinary people. And a lot of it seems pedestrian now. Everybody has an iPhone and they can make a film, you know, and they can reach a lot of people. And that's wonderful. That was not accessible, but regrets about it? No.
So what kind of, because the technology has changed the industry so much, it hasn't changed what you listen for, what you look for.
No, and something is true now that I told kids back then, the script comes first. You know, even if you're dealing with music, if you're dealing with visual arts, what's the story you're telling?
That's right. I know I tell that when I'm talking to writers, you know, and they ask me that same question, you know, and they, you know, well, what do I do? How do I get started? What's the first sentence? And I say, your outline. You need to know what you're going to be talking about. And so therefore you need to know where the story is going. And if you don't, what'll happen is that you just end up having people just, you know, it's always a loose end. And they never get finished. First, that's another thing.
Right.
They never get finished.
Right.
And then they're very frustrated after a year's worth of work because they haven't brought things to closure. They haven't wrapped it, you know. So you do have to make sure. And the thing of it is that these writers and these artists, their mindsets are like way out there. Theirs is creative. We just want to create.
Well, you sort of see the end.
Yeah.
You know, this is the big picture. Oh, how am I going to get there?
That's right.
You know?
Well, and that's kind of reminds, we were talking before the show, Chris and I, they're in the American, there's an article about Kennedy Holmes in there on The Voice.
Yes.
And many times you're watching The Voice where they say, you know, it really great. I'm not talking about Kennedy here necessarily, but great singing, but I need to hear more of you in this song. Do you feel this song? Do you understand what this song means? And when young kids, and she's just turned 14, can express the emotion of what I would call an adult song with an adult emotion, that's really understanding things.
Yeah, she is a rarity. She has that voice. We talked about being able to understand her as well.
Articulation.
Yeah, she reminds me of Whitney Houston in
Yes, she
that
does.
way, in that her voice is pure. There are no gimmicks with her, and that's such a rarity.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing her, hearing her, and wishing her well. She is like a week into being 14.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
A
know?
week into being 14.
Right. And you can sort of see the vultures already out there.
Right.
And I looked at footage of her mom and went, she's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. You know? And I hear what her friends say. It's like, yeah, this is a level-headed young woman who has an enormous gift.
And she's probably been using that gift for a number of years. So she's been in situations, you know, a lot of times they start, as soon as you're at church and they realize that you can, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
put three notes together, you become the soloist, you know.
Every week.
Every week, that's right. And so you start to learn how to conduct yourself in ways that are different than other children who are just running around playing and doing whatever. You're learning your trade.
Yeah, I know Chris talked about the vultures. I kind of
Yes.
call them ticks.
Okay.
They suck
Like the
the
new
life.
Asian tick that's coming into
They
the
suck the life out of you.
They
You know,
do.
they're just along for the ride to get their benefit. And in young talent, like you were talking about, Ellie, you know, singing in church, and then when you go to a different venue, when the venue becomes larger, or now the lights, now the dancers
That's
behind
right,
you,
that's
now
right.
this whole
Right.
staging, now outfits you're wearing.
outfits, makeup, hair.
It's just this.
The songs you sing.
Yes,
That's right.
It raises this, and sometimes I think it maybe for some people, and maybe not for her, but I've seen this happen to artists where they kind of get a little full of themselves along the way, and it's good to kind of keep a perspective and to have somebody. That's why they have handlers, you know.
Yeah, or parents.
Yeah.
You know, that just say, excuse me,
You're
but
not doing that.
That's right.
Right.
Except you're not going to dress like that.
Yeah.
You're not going to sing that song.
However, you have that group of people who come in and say, oh, you could be emancipated. You know,
Yeah.
you have the maturity
Yeah.
to handle your business as long as I'm with you handling
As long
your
as
business.
I'm your manager.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, what's in it for you?
And that's the
so
danger.
There are really serious stakes, but I think she's going to do it. She's
That
going
is
to do
great.
it well, you know.
So you mentioned one thing that you would give to youngsters who are entering the business or thinking about entering the business about, you mentioned that earlier. What other things would you give them?
I would let them know about the sacrifices, because there are sacrifices. Depending on how you go into it, if you go into a traditional corporate structure, you are then a team player. So what you're dreaming about may not coincide with what the business department says, but you're an employee and you roll it that way. If you go independent, which I do more often than not, there is a freedom, but there's a freedom to work harder.
That's right.
Okay?
Exactly.
You pay a different type of dues
Right.
with it. And for me, that's the best way for me.
Yeah.
So I think whoever that person is, just be true to yourself. If you don't want to deal with IRS audits, if you don't want to deal with a layer between you and the outside world in your industry, go the traditional corporate route. If you like flying without a net, hey, just go be independent, but learn the business of the industry and the art.
Yeah, and that's I think where you are in your career right now. You have gleaned some things from being in the industry, and which gives you the ability to work independently. You know kind of the scope of things, to go through the sequence of things.
Sure.
If somebody who's just kind of budding into it, their learning curve is going to be a lot longer unless they're in an established kind of industry group.
Yeah, I would suggest that all people who go into the arts take a business class, and learn how it applies to what you're into. At least so. Let us hope you can continue to take the deductions, so you'll know to keep the receipts.
Right.
Something as simple as keeping the receipts.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep a ledger. Know how much it actually costs you to produce that work of art, aside from your time, and then add your time.
Right. Because your time is worth money
It's
too.
valuable. That's right.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that I always enjoyed hearing from Chris was when she was always preparing to take her annual trip over to the Cannes Music Festival.
Film festival.
Film festival in France. And like most of us, we think about going, maybe to Kirkwood to go to the movie theater. No,
To the canned music.
that's
festival.
right, to the Cannes Music Festival
Which is
somewhere in
cool.
Kirkwood.
Every little bit.
Chris is flying off, to the Cannes Music Festival, Film Festival, and it's really something I was asking her recently, and we were talking about. Well, why don't you just call up somebody that call up Jay-Z, call up, because she knows these people like that, and she was like, when they go over there, they're all begging for money too, and I was just like, what? I mean, these are guys that are cajillionaires. Chris, why are they begging for money for their next project?
There's the unwritten rule. Don't produce with your own money.
I'm not spending my money to do this.
Right.
Okay. Now, self-producing is not a problem. I've been working on a project forever that I'm self-producing. It would be better financially if I said, would you underwrite this? Would you contribute? Would you invest in that? But then you have business partners on it. Then you have to compromise what you're doing. That's not a bad thing necessarily. But why would you not ask if that is what these other people invest in as their business?
Right, exactly.
People think that Tyler Perry goes into his wallet for every Medea film. No, read the credits. you will see where monies come in. You will see that a lot of his films are distributed by Lionsgate.
Right.
You make a distribution deal. That includes money.
Money. That's
you know?
right. Exactly.
So, yeah, these are collaborative art forms.
And two, I would think that it would change your whole dynamic of, okay, rather than I'm going to Cannes so I can get a picture with so and so and be around all the beautiful people and go to the parties. I mean, that's what we all think on the surface, right?
That's the surface.
That's
of
right.
it. That's a hardcore business.
Yeah.
That is a cutthroat business.
Yeah, and especially what people wear they have a red carpet deal there, right?
Yes.
What they wear on the red carpet, that makes headline news.
That's right. You better
and
believe it.
All
And
these
that walk is one of the longest walks, but they also have rules. And I think it was just this past one where the major debate was, could a woman wear flat heel
That's right.
shoes?
Exactly.
I was
Yes.
thinking-
I mean,
that
they're
was it.
serious.
you were talking about that as you were doing that. What was in my mind is no bedroom slippers.
Oh, it's beyond that.
Wait,
It is.
now that would be if it was a bunch of black people, okay?
No jammies.
yeah, no jammies, okay, no bedroom slippers, we know that. But, come on,
Maybe
me and
some
Chris.
Versace jammies.
That's right.
but
You can't wear flats.
No, women have to wear high heels.
heels.
Yes. That's been a
They're-
big
they're
write-up.
traditional. This
How
is
about platform shoes? Especially if your husband's taller.
No, they want.
well, you can wear
Elton John.
platform heels,
Well, Elton,
Guys have a
Yeah.
little more flexibility.
we're going to leave that
but
alone.
There are shops surrounding the festival site that specializes in rentals for what you need to wear there. And I have to do one shout out to Afro World, based here in St. Louis, because I went to a place to find some hair conditioning products, and their products were from Afro World, St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it was great.
That's cool.
Yes, they gave me a discount. 'Cause I knew the people.
Just say that again. That's a commercial.
Yes.
It's a shameless plug, as Ellie would
It's a
say.
shameless plug.
I must say, the shop in Cannes gave me the discount. Afro World, I did let them know where their products are.
That is pretty funny,
Chris, I really appreciate you
I had a ball.
coming on and talking. And I know before the show you were like, I'm going to be a tough interview. I'm like,
And what did I tell you? I said, we don't have a 5-hour show.
yeah. So we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I thank you for asking me, Arnold. Thank you, Ellie. This has been fun. You all have fun on this.
We do.
We do.
We do. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a hold on to that opening with the Viagra for a long time.
Right. So if you're wondering what that is, folks, you can go back to SoundCloud when I post that and put in the search engine Intune KWRH, and you can check that Viagra joke and the thing that Ellie said, or on iTunes. Same
That's
thing.
right. See, because I always like to bring up something that Arnold doesn't even know I'm getting ready to bring it up. And
Well, the whole second half of this show is going to be something Ellie's not going to be aware of.
Uh-oh.
So you need to stay tuned for that, because we're going to play some of the worst Christmas songs, production of Christmas songs ever.
This is going to be great.
This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton of Intune. You're listening to KWRH-LP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri.
The views and opinions expressed by the following program